Hello, I'm Laura Wazalowski, and I have a new book from C&T Publishing. It's called Playful Freeform Embroidery. There are 6 fun hand embroidery projects in the book. And here's a tutorial from one of those designs. The projects in Playful Freeform Embroidery are made with 100% wool fabrics or felt fabrics with at least a 20% wool content. They're also made with very basic hand embroidery stitches. A favorite project in the book is called Natural Gardening. Natural Gardening is made on a black wool fabric. The fence, the poppy, and the moon are made with felt fabrics. I'll show you how to start growing your garden. Once the fence is installed, we'll start building those plants that are in the background. The poppies are connected to the ground with a chain stitch. And now I'm going to make some ferns that are growing next to the poppies. I'm using a size 8 pearl cotton and a size 3 hand embroidery needle. The thread is variegated. I like the way it changes colors as I stitch. This is my version of a fern stitch. It's not really the fern stitch, but it's a lot faster. You begin at the top of the fern and you take a straight stitch down, about 1/4 inch. When you bring the needle tip up, you're going to bring it to one side, about halfway up that stitch that you've already made. Now insert the needle tip on the other side of that vertical stitch. Bring the tip of the needle up at the base of your very first vertical stitch. Don't draw the needle through yet. Make sure that thread is underneath the tip of the needle and pull it through. And now you're going to take another long stitch down below that. Again, you go to one side, bring the needle tip up, and then go to the other side and insert the tip of the needle about halfway down from the vertical stitch. Bring the needle tip up at the base of that vertical stitch. So what I'm really doing is I'm making fly stitches with an elongated base to them. And you'll continue making these long Y-shaped fly stitches all the way down. Stitching on wool is so easy on your hands. I love working with wool and felt. Another basic hand embroidery stitch is the lazy daisy or detached chain stitch. To fill out the ferns, I'll be using the lazy daisy stitch in between the spikes of the fern I just made. I don't start at the top, I skip down and go to the next set of spikes. To make a lazy daisy stitch, insert the tip of the needle right into the fabric where you came out. Take a scoop of fabric, about 1/4 inch, then make sure that the thread is underneath the tip of the needle. Pull the needle and thread through the fabric. Your next step is to trap that loop into place by putting the tip of the needle on the other side of the loop, and that will secure your first lazy daisy stitch into place. Now I'm going to the other side of the fern and I'll fill it in with a lazy daisy stitch too. Needle tips back into the fabric. I bring it up, making sure that the thread is underneath the tip of the needle to make my loop, and go over to that side and secure the loop by putting the tip and the thread on the other side of your loop. You'll continue to make these lazy daisy stitches all the way down that fern shape to fill it in. Again, I'm using that variegated thread because I like the change in color. It adds a lot more interest to the design. Next up in the garden are these sweet turquoise daisy flowers with orange centers. I'm going to be making these flowers with that size 8 pearl cotton again, and a size 3 hand embroidery needle. First, you need to make some stems like this using the stem stitch, and at the tip of that we'll add our flowers. The flowers are again made with the lazy daisy stitches, sort of revolving around the tip of that stem stitch. When I add the lazy daisy stitches to my daisy, I'll leave a little hole in the center that I'll pivot around. I'll be adding French knots inside the hole there. So again, to make a lazy daisy stitch, you go back into the fabric where you came out, take a scoop of fabric, make sure the thread's under the tip of the needle, pull it through, and trap the loop down by going on the other side of the loop with your needle and thread. Our next step is to add French knots to the centers of our flowers. I'm using a size 8 pearl cotton again. I like the way pearl cotton sits up on the fabric, especially a wool and felt fabric. It doesn't flatten out and gives you lots of texture. Here's how to make a French knot. Wrap the thread around the needle tip. Insert the tip of the needle into the fabric vertically. Pull the needle through, kind of pop it through. I put my thumb on top so it doesn't tangle up. And pull the thread through the knot. Let's do another one. Again, the needle and thread are on top. Wrap it 1, 2, maybe 3 times. Insert the tip of the needle where you came out. Needle goes in through the knot. Pull it gently so it doesn't tangle. French knots add wonderful hits of color to any design, and you'll find that they're used in every project in playful freeform embroidery. Usually they're combined with other stitches to make textures or shapes like these little daisy flowers. The stitches used in natural gardening range from very simple ones, like the running stitch on the fence, to those stitch combinations that we just covered, like the Fern Stitch, and the lazy daisy stitches and French knots as well. You'll also find more complex stitches, like this bullion knot used to create these lupin flowers. But the poppies are made with straight stitches, and again, that very useful French knot. I'm Laura Wazalowski. Thank you for joining me for some playful freeform embroidery.